Hey everyone, I'm back with another video. I have been a little MIA from Bookstagram and Booktube and things like that because I went on a road trip. I went to San Francisco and the Redwoods and it was a lot of fun and it was so pretty and I miss it already. I really like being out on the road and exploring new places and things like that, and it was kind of perfect. So here I am back in LA. Okay, so now that it's officially the end of June, I wanted to do a June wrap-up and July TBR video so I can show you guys all of the books that I read in the month of June and kind of talk a little bit about each one. I'm only going to touch on them briefly because I am planning on making a tier rating or tier thing of all of the books later on. Like, I'm just going to do 25 books at a time for that tier list thing, and I'll talk about them more in depth there with like ratings and stuff. But I'll just briefly touch on the things that I read this month, so let's get started. Okay, so I'll be talking about the books here in no particular order. I just have them stacked here next to me, so I will go in order by how they're stacked. So I read The Miseducation of Cameron Post by Emily Danforth, and this one, truth be told, I have had this on my TBR for so long. You can see I got an advanced reader's copy years ago and I just never got around to reading it. And I finally read it this month and it was really great in terms of this coming of age LGBT story. So perfect for Pride Month, and the way the story unfolded was great, but it did feel a little bit like long-winded at times in terms of its descriptions and things like that. So it probably could have been cut down quite a bit in terms of its writing. But again, I have the advanced reader's copy, so I don't know how accurate that is to the actual like published version available for purchase. But I did read that this month, so accomplishments, you know, we're doing great. I read the second book in the Dune series. So this one is Dune Messiah, and this one I actually really enjoyed. It was a very short read. I think I finished it in about a day and a half. And yes, the language can be a little bit hard to follow sometimes. It's literally like learning a new language. I remember the first book had a glossary in the back and I would constantly be flipping to it. It always takes a little bit to get used to really delve into that world, but I really enjoyed the philosophy behind this one and the idea of politics and religion and how they interplay and things like that. Is interplay a verb or is it a noun? So that was Dune, and I'm excited to read the rest of this series. It's probably going to be a little bit slow for me because I find that sci-fi is probably one of my least favorite genres. Not that I don't like it, it just is not really high up there for me, so it always takes me a while to decide to pick one up. But I'll probably read the next series before the end of, or the next book in the series before the end of the year. The next book that I read in the month of June is called Traumatized by Katie Morton, and this one was really amazing. As you can see, I added some annotations, and especially as someone who works in school psychology, like, this was such a important book for me to read because it really helped me understand more about the people who have trauma, whether that's PTSD or intergenerational trauma or things like that. It explained things really easily in a really matter-of-fact way, and I really like how the chapters are broken up and how it incorporated like the DSM and things like that. It did get a little bit repetitive in telling you to just go to therapy if you have these issues, but it did give a lot of other solutions, and towards the end it stopped being so repetitive. So overall, I enjoyed this one. In the month of June, I also read the first book of the Infernal Devices series by Cassandra Clare. This one's called Clockwork Angel. This one was very enjoyable. The writing felt a little bit like juvenile to me, but in terms of the story, I really like how creative it was, and I like the steampunky element that it has to it. And the villain was also really good, and I feel like the plot moved along in a really well done way. Like, there was constantly something happening, so it didn't feel too long or drawn out or anything. I don't know how I feel about the main character yet. She was a little bit, not bland necessarily, but I do hope to see more of her personality come out in the next book so I can connect with her more, because I feel like I didn't connect with her as much as I would have liked in the first book. I think one of the first books that I read this month, or the first book that I read this month, was this one, Persuasion by Jane Austen. This one was an excellent commentary on, you know, the social etiquette of the time and social standings of the time, and there was romance in it, but I feel like it was more than just about the romance, especially because we didn't really see that develop until later in the book. The writing just always gets me. Her descriptions are so poetic without being overly difficult to understand, and there's just so much wittiness and humor in it too, and I love it so much. I read Cricket Kingdom. There's a vlog of me crying about it, so I will not say much more than that. This is a book that I borrowed from the library, one of a few books that I borrowed from the library. It's called Fat Chance Charlie Vega by Crystal Maldonado. And this one was, it was decent. I gave it, I think, 3 stars on Goodreads, or 3.5. I felt like it was a really good, important coming of age YA novel about this girl who has self-esteem issues in high school because of the way that she looks. And I mean, I felt like I could really connect with those high school scenes. It felt really visceral. It put me back in high school when I had that anxiety, and I had those issues with self-esteem as well. So I was really able to connect with the character in that sense. But at times the character just felt a little bit immature, even given that she's in high school. I felt like her actions and thoughts could have been a little bit more mature, and I think a big part of it was also the writing. The writing didn't really do it for me sometimes. It just felt a little bit surface level. The middle of the book was a little bit boring for me because of that. I feel like in a lot of coming of age YA novels, or just coming of age in general, there's not a lot that happens with the plot. It's more character driven, and so because of that, the writing has to be really strong. To be fair, I'm not YA. I'm not a young adult anymore. I'm not the intended audience for this book, so take that with a grain of salt. Other books that I read in June that I don't have a physical copy of because I borrowed it from the library, or I borrowed it from a friend, or it was on my Kindle. I read House of Leaves by Mark Danielewski? Yeah, Mark Danielewski, and this one was mind-boggling for me. It gave me so much anxiety while reading it, and it was so creative. I've never read anything like that before, and I'm pretty sure I gave it 5 stars on Goodreads solely for the fact that it messed me up so much. I also read Felix Ever After by Kaysen Callender. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, and I apologize if I'm not. Felix Ever After was such a good story. I think this is a good example of coming of age that was written well, and it didn't feel like it dragged, because while it was more character than plot driven, this character I feel like was really, really likable. He was sarcastic and funny, and he had his struggles, but he also was working through them, and I think what was a really mature way, maybe not so much at the beginning, but I think he really developed that maturity throughout the novel, so really well done. And I read Stardust by Neil Gaiman, which I also really loved. It was just so magical and whimsical and gruesome at the same time, and it was classic Neil Gaiman. He makes things that shouldn't make sense, and I appreciate that in his writing. I wish the book was longer. I finished it in a day, and I wish there were more pages dedicated to the whimsical creatures in the world and things like that. But I read it, and then I watched the movie that same day or the day after, and the movie was also so cute. I loved it so much. I think I watched it twice in a row. Perfect, splendid. The last 2 books that I read in June. So the first one was the Star-Crossed Sisters of Tuscany, and this one, I have a physical copy of it, but I'm not going to get it because it's all the way in the back of my bookshelf for good reason. This one was just so disappointing for me. I read all these reviews on Goodreads and everyone seemed to love it. Same thing on Bookstagram. I feel like a lot of people who featured that book or talked about it seemed to give rave reviews, and don't get me wrong, while it was a great story, no, it wasn't a really great story. I liked the story that was told about the past, but I didn't really like the main character at all. It felt a little bit like Hallmark movie-ish, and there were way too many 90s, early 2000s tropes, oh, she takes off her glasses and she's good looking now, and things like that. I don't know, the main character, like I said, I didn't really like her. She felt really naive and unlikable and kind of pushover-y, and I understand that she did develop throughout the novel, but there was just so much about her that I didn't like by that point that there was no redemption in my eyes. I really wanted to like it more than I did. I'll go more into depth with this book when I do my tier rating, but this one fell really flat for me. The last two books I read this month were The Viscount Who Loved Me and An Offer from a Gentleman by Julia Quinn, which are the second and third books in the Bridgerton series. And I definitely like Anthony more than I like Benedict Bridgerton. Benedict is not likable, not very mature for his age. That's all I'm gonna say about it. I'm just reading these with my friend. We decided to kind of go through the Bridgerton books this year. So the Bridgerton books are like our chill, you know, wanna relax, not really think about it too much series. So I'm not taking it too seriously. So that does it for my June wrap up. And now I'm going to talk about all the books that I'd like to read in the month of July. So right now what I'm reading is One Man Guide by Michael Barakiva, and I'm really excited for this one because it's an LGBT book with Armenian representation. Our main character's Armenian, and I don't think I've ever read a fiction where the main character is Armenian. So I'm just so happy that we have some Armenian rep out there. Hey guys, Mary popping in to say that I somehow lost the video clip of me talking about the Count of Monte Cristo, but that is also on my TBR for July, and you can probably hear my dog walking around, so bye. The next book that I plan on reading this month is The Lost Apothecary by Sarah Penner. This one has been catching my eye for months simply because of the cover. It is so gorgeous. And I don't know that much about the story, so I'm kind of going into it blind, but I will be starting this one probably today or tomorrow because I'm reading it with a buddy of mine. I'm going to try to get to Float Plan this month. This is a book that was sent to me by one of my friends on Bookstagram. I will link her username down below, but she really had great things to say about this book and I trust her opinion, so she offered to send it to me, which was really nice of her. You can see the little sticky note that she included here. So I am looking forward to this one. Seems like it's going to be a short, I don't want to say fun read because I know that there's some serious topics covered in here, but it seems like it's going to be a good short read for the month. Okay, so next for my July TBR is An American Marriage. This one is, again, something that I've been seeing around Bookstagram quite a lot. And it seems like a good book to read when I want to read about something a little bit more serious. So not necessarily a fantasy, not something humorous, but I feel like I've been reading like fewer actual just plain fiction books, and this will be a good one, I think, to kind of fulfill that, but also a good break from the monotony of like, oh, another fantasy, another romance, another whatever. I could be wrong. I don't know much about the plot, but I do know that it gets really good reviews from the people who read it, so I'm really looking forward to this one. The Storyteller is a book that I got for my birthday or for Christmas a few years ago. I don't remember which. I'm really going to try to make it a point to read all the books that have been on my shelves for a really long time before I continue to buy new books. I'm also planning on reading this book, The Council of Animals, in July. Actually, these next few books are all going to be advanced readers copies or copies sent to me by publishers. But yes, this one kind of reminds me of, what's the book I'm thinking of? Was it Animal Farm, maybe? Yeah, at least based on the description. So this one I'm looking forward to reading and seeing what it has to offer. And then I also got sent this book by Hachette Books, and this is called The Queer Advantage. It's basically, I think, like an interview style book where it talks to different like LGBTQ icons and leaders and things like that. So this will be really fascinating for me to read and really educational. So I am excited for this one, and I do think the format will make it super engaging and easy to read. It's also really nice. Like, look at that hardcover. It's beautiful. My other advanced readers copy that I plan on reading in July is called In the Weeds. This is a story of Anthony Bourdain, or not his biography necessarily, but I think it's more about like his show and kind of a behind the scenes look on how that was done and his life and things like that. So we'll see how that goes, but again, look at that cover. It's just so cool, and I love that illustration and the colors and things like that. So this is one that was also sent to me by Hachette, and one I'm super looking forward to. The last book that I'm planning to read in July is the fourth book in the Bridgerton series. I don't remember what it's called right now. I can't recall it from the recesses of my mind at the moment, but it is about Colin, and I think he'll be one of my favorite siblings. I've heard the fourth book is the favorite of a lot of people, so I hope it doesn't fail to deliver. And that's basically it. Those are all the books I read in June, all the ones I want to read in July, and it's going to be a busy summer in terms of my reading. I also will be traveling a little bit, and I have like a lot of things lined up in terms of stuff I need to do and friends I'm going to see and do things with, so I'll be quite busy, but I'm hoping to make time for all of these books, and if not, gonna try not to be too hard on myself because there's always August. So I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please consider liking and subscribing and commenting and all of that good stuff. And I will see you guys next time. Bye, thanks for watching.